So he's making this case, and he says they knew him, they knew his divine nature, and they knew his eternal power. And it was clearly perceived, it was shown in them. Then he goes on to say they are without excuse. And that's going to be the conclusion of every people group, whether it's these people, Jews, or Gentiles. There is no excuse before God. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and foolish hearts were darkened. Now, this know God is literally the idea that they had a full knowledge of him. They understood it. And we don't want to belabor that point too far. But they knew God, but they didn't give him honor. This is not foreign to us. This is probably a daily occurrence for many of us, myself included in that number. We know God, but we don't honor him. And so what happens for these people as Christians, we have the Holy Spirit in us and continues to outreach to us, and hopefully we respond to that. But in this context, these are people that knew of him. They didn't honor him. And so because they habitually and in a final sense rejected him, gave him no thanks, it says they became futile in their thinking. And the word futile there, it just means purposeless or worthless. They became purposeless in their thinking. And this shouldn't super surprise us, because anytime we take God out of the equation of our thinking process, it is purposeless. Because God designed us to be with him. Now, I'm not saying like if you're sitting on your couch thinking like, I wonder how the Hubble telescope works, that's somehow pointless. There's a point to that. It's to gain knowledge and understand the universe. That's fine. But what I'm saying is when we remove and we reject all that God has, all that gives him honor, all that he says is good or bad or whatever, our thinking becomes purposeless. And the interesting thing is when we go down those roads with purposeless thinking, what happens? Anxiety cranks in, doesn't it? If I have no purpose and no security, no understanding, if the world is random, if I am just ooze, if I have no point, if there's no one in my corner, if there's no reality, there's no reason to go to work. You know why I got saved? Not that it matters to you, but I'll tell you because it works out for me and I'm the one talking. I got saved because I grew up rich, very well off. And by the time I was 10, I had about anything you could want. And I realized at the age of 10, my life and the life of my parents is pointless. My dad had his own architecture firm. My mom was the principal of a school. I was a high school dropout. Because I looked at them and I looked at all the teachers in my high school and I looked at every adult and I looked at them and everything that was promoted to me as a child, which is get some, get rich, work hard, retire well. I looked at it with all, I could walk into my room and play with any new toy I wanted to. I could go to school, go ride in my parents' nice cars, and I realized they are just going to die. And so am I. And so at about 12 years old, for me personally, I was like, I'm done with this life. I have no reason to live. Absolutely none. Money means nothing. I mean, I was comfortable. I'm not saying like, oh gosh, I wish I wasn't comfortable. I'm saying, this is pointless. When we remove God from our thinking, our thoughts are futile. We become bobbing and lost. But because we are eternal, we attach things to value. We attach value to things that's fake. Money and sex and fame or influence. And we say, if I had those things, well, then I would be complete. But it's purposeless thinking. It's worthless thinking. So even though they knew him, they rejected him, their thoughts became worthless, they were futile, and then their foolish hearts were darkened. And it means they're morally senseless. So there's this initial rejection, a consideration of God and understanding of who he is, and then a shoving aside. And then from that shoving aside, we become purposeless, even though we jump in every rat race we can to try to find purpose and meaning. We just pour ourselves into it. And from there it says that for these particular people, and it happens in humanity also, that from that place, that our minds, they become morally senseless. All of a sudden, when I'm purposeless, when I've rejected what God said is good, then I have no moral compass. I'm suppressing the truth in my life. And at that point, honestly, it's kind of like the old talk we all heard. If there's no absolute truth, then there's no point to anything. If there's no absolute truth, you can be murdered by someone and it's fine because that person thought it was fine. That's why my truth is like the most worthless and joke of a proclamation that has ever been. It's philosophically inane. It's ridiculous. My truth. You can have my truth about ice cream, and that's about it. After that, there is truth, and there is untruth. And so we have to be careful that when we reject what is truth, and not surprised when we see people around us rejecting what is truth, that their minds go to weird places. Because why does it matter anymore? Legitimately, why does it matter anymore? I can do whatever I want. Now, society will say, this is bad and this was bad. Well, society 50 years said, you probably shouldn't try to self-medicate with different drugs. Society today says, what's the point? Medicate all you want. It changed. Society changed. So if if it can sway, if I can live by my truth, then it's no surprising that I'm going to become morally bankrupt and I'm going to wander. Because I have nothing to anchor me. And so that led to another place. It says there, they exchanged the glory of the immortal God, which glory, again, is the idea of good opinion or weightiness. They exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. So it's a natural progression that when I reject God as having honor and glory and worthy of consideration, that I have to look to creation. Typically, the first look is to me. I deserve honor and glory. I'm really great. I want to pamper me. I want to make sure I'm squared away. I'm numero uno. I look out for me. And then I treat people from that place, right? You've offended me, so off with your head. My sovereignty has been, broken, and I don't like it, and now I'm going to treat you like poo, and then I'll justify it in my mind because I have no moral compass. Because what I say is true, because I've rejected that which is ultimately true. So all these things, turning to creation for that which you want, this is what's been happening from the beginning. Human beings have always been willing to sacrifice to idols or to whatever it might be for the same things. It's never changed. Fertility, money, land, power. It has never changed. Whether it's aborting a baby to continue to get, in your career, I'm not harping on women that get abortions. I'm just saying that whether it's all the way back to Moloch, where you throw your firstborn onto a burning statue so that you can get more land, or whether it's killing children today so that you can continue with that. Man's desire after he rejects God has never changed. We've always been the same for 6,000 years. So don't be surprised that our society is going this way. As a nation, we want to reject and take Jesus out of every single thing we can. But we want to maintain all the blessings of the Holy Spirit. We want to say, no, we're not going to acknowledge the one who is love and who perpetuates love, but we're going to try to fake it over here and have love. It's why we're in the position we're in, that we can't even have conversations without rage and just radical passion. We can't even discuss things anymore because we have rejected love in person, embodied. And instead, we've gone to creation. We worship creation in a lot of different ways now, but we're running out of time.